Welcome to Sacred Conversations. My name is Mandula, and today we are talking about the entities, and we look at different types of entities specifically within the family unit and structure. So, right now, just so you know, you're going to hear different sounds. I'm in the park, but I needed to connect to nature. So, please just expect dogs, little babies, parents, the works. So, we need to break this down so we understand it a little bit more. The word entity and its etymology, because it's so important to look at the etymology of the holding vibration or the founding vibration of a word, because as much as we might interpret it as different things, if we don't understand the full meaning of it, that vibration could vibrate higher. Okay, sometimes you might wonder why you are saying things and it's not working the way in which you want it to. It's simply because you are casting spells, and you are casting spells from a particular vibration and foundation that either comes from high with good intent or from low vibration. Okay, it's like saying good morning. When you're saying good morning, it was, if I'm correct, I stand to be corrected, but it was from the killing of certain slaves in the morning, where they would kill them in the morning and it was a good morning. So you would mourn. It was a good thing to mourn. Okay, so just observe, question things, because as we are casting spells, we are creating resistance, or we are opening up the gate for abundance in our lives. So the etymology of entity is being. Being means existence, to exist. And then we look at the word entity and what it means. Entity is a thing with distinct and independent existence. Similar to these words, one can call it synonyms. It's an institution. It's an establishment. It's an organization. It's an operation, a structure, a system, a set up. Okay. So we think of family as a certain entity. It's a certain institution and operation. Another word for entity is existence and being. So similar words as living, its life, its essence. Okay, its being, its existence, its animation, its vital force. Okay, so we holding space for discomfort now, because the truth about family also needs to be shared as to why you would feel, or you would be at home but not feel at home, or you find yourself experiencing a different type of treatment. And this might be specifically more towards my generational curse breakers. There would be more resonance and understanding what I say by being treated differently, and not being treated differently by the way in which, you obviously treat people differently, but there's also ill intent. Okay. There is ill intent. And when you come from a family that is wounded, you must understand that your role, this identity that you had created within yourself to save them, was because you understood that you were placed in a wounded space. It's almost like either a psych ward or an emergency ward, where people need you and your healing. So perhaps I'm also speaking to a healer who your healing work is shifting from what it used to be to what it needs to be. So you might be finding that the same way of operating no longer gives you the same satisfaction anymore. This is because the way in which you have identified yourself as healer is to empty of yourself so that others can be full. The new way of healer now in this new earth is being full of yourself and only giving what flows over from that cup. So we are being rebirthed into what the original healer was. Not the healer that is broke, not the healer that is broken, not the healer that is willing to give a full arm and a leg and not eat and being willing to survive. We have moved from that identity and we have reshifted the identity to that of full healer, where you have multitudes of income, where you have plenty energy, where you are resourced because you understand how to resource yourself, how to engage in conversation, how to be present and when not to be present, when to speak, when not to speak. So when we look at the entity of mother and father, for example, your parents were two young kids who went through life, who went through struggles, who too, with their parents, experienced pain. That pain transferred into them to be able to heal a certain layer of that cord, to cut a certain layer of that cord that was passed down from their parents, whose parents passed it on to them. This is where we speak along the lines of generational curses. Now, your parents were two lovers who also needed love. Like everybody, you want to experience the joy of being in the presence of someone who can exchange love mutually in agreement. Yet, because you haven't healed, you will ultimately experience the same wounds with the addition of the gap and the you feel disheartened when you find out the truth of what is, right? So we see your parents become parents, but remember they were lovers. So up until they have identified themselves, they are simply going to regurgitate and pass down the curses that were given to them. Okay. And as they are passing it down, consciously to a certain level and unconsciously to a certain level, we must understand that first, consciously, because we are spirit having a physical experience. Now, you probably think a different way, and that's okay. This is not a debate. You feel what you feel. This is your life and your way in which you're going to choose how to operate it, okay? So they have done what they thought was best to be able to not pass down and to not experience what they experienced as children. Now, once again, the founding foundation, is that the same thing? The foundation of something, the root of it, basically a tree with fruit or flowers has roots. Now, you might look at the flowers like perhaps maybe your parents stayed in a rural area, or they weren't well off, and then when they were children, and then when they were adults, they managed to stay in the suburbs. Now, in their mind, that could be an upgrade. Yet, it could be an upgrade because what people are seeing are the flowers, and they're looking at the fruits and vegetation of this plant, but the roots down deep are rooted in poverty. They're rooted in pain. So no matter how beautiful it looks on the outside, it's still going to slowly root out. So those who are directly eating of the fruit, or those who are gathering towards the shade, or those who are taking care of the tree, will feel the roots, because as above, so below, right? As you're growing upwards, you're also growing inwards. That's why we constantly are spiraling in this spiritual dance between our shadows and our light, between who we say we are and who we experience who we are not. Everything is a choice. So, the entity, which is an institution, which is the operation or the establishment or the structure, is family. So your family almost holds that position of government, because it's a mini government from the local government that everybody draws towards nationally and internationally, right? So the entity mother, father, brother, sister, cousin, uncle, etc., is a role on its own. It has its own duties. It has its own responsibilities to be able to be of service. It's no different to you being an accountant, being a doctor, being a teacher. That is a role that you have to fulfill in society. That is a role that you get either paid to do, whether it's monetary or non-monetary, but you get paid to take that role. So now you're taking this position, and you've got these two children who became adults, who, if they are still unhealed, are walking around as children in adult jumpsuits. And they take this position from lovers or lover to father, lover to mother. Remember, this mother role is an establishment, it's an operation, an organization. This is why it becomes important to do the healing work when you are planning to get married, because when you get married, unless you have fully decided that you are not going to form your own family, there is the potential of forming your own family. Now, do yourself a favor, and when you are creating things, create from the highest vibration possible and available to you in that moment. Perhaps even get to the point where you do not make a decision unless it is from the highest position and highest perspective and vibration. Because the roots, if you are manifesting from that space, you are going to produce that. So have you noticed sometimes where a fruit might look beautiful, but you eat at it and it's just dry, or it's too bitter, or whatever is the case? Maybe the sweet fruit now tastes like lemons. It tastes bitter. It's because the foundation at which it was planted with that intention was of a low vibration. I'll use an example where I heard a story once where at the time he was 50 years old, this man had been going to therapy for 25 years to the same therapist. This therapist, to the same therapist, 25 years. This man then eventually gets the courage to speak to his dad and to ask him, why did you not come out of the car when I was playing soccer? Why did you not come out of the car to see me and watch me play when I was playing soccer? That had clearly made him not feel good enough, that he was not worthy to be seen, to be celebrated. His father then responded, I vowed to myself that I would never do it because my dad would come on the field and embarrass me. So you must understand that every action is from an energy that someone didn't want the same thing to happen to the person that was going to come ahead of them or behind them, whatever is the case. So more often than not, you do things and we do things from the perspective of not wanting it or not enjoying it having been done to us. And that's why it's so important to do the healing work. And when we mean healing work, we're meaning recalibrating the nervous system from a fear-based system, an anxious vibration, to that of safety. And then to rewire the brain from fear back up to joy and peace, to expect joy and peace in your life. So unless they know who they are, your parents, because you must understand, your mother, for example, is a lover. She plays that role. She plays the role of friend. She plays the role as aunt, cousin, sister, grandmother, possibly. Beyond that role and those roles, who are they when you are in their presence? Can they be who they are? Because I remember this one talk, and I don't want to like butcher his surname, but it's something Baldwin and another lady, and she was like, why is it in relationship that you can come home to me and give me the non-kind version, but when you step outside of the house, you give the people your best version? Why can't I get that? Lie to me like you're lying to them. Lie to me like you're lying to them, because then I can get the best of you, because right now I'm not getting the best of you. And it goes back into the entity takes over. When we don't question what the purpose of the role is specifically for us as an individual, and we assume the role, we hit a high danger point, because then that entity takes over you. You no longer can be your loving self, the best version of you. You then give the people you are taking responsibility over the worst version of you. So why is it that you can pretend to people you don't love, but the people you do love, you give them the worst version? This is what the entities do that spiritually. There's an entity of mother, there's an entity of father, there's an entity of sibling, there's an entity of friend. And that is why it is so important to heal and to repurpose the relationship, to be able to repurpose your positioning, to release the assumptions, because your assumptions is where the pain lies. You assumed that because you saw your mom doing what she did growing up, that you need to do that, even though you knew something didn't feel right. So if you are experiencing pain through your family, you must understand that you are not dealing with human. You are dealing with entities, entities that have taken over, entities of low vibration. Entities who have not come for your highest good. But it's your role to take what was there and repurpose it and alchemize it into the highest vibration. So I'm wishing you all the best with that journey of understanding that your parents, your siblings are holding the vibration of entity, and unless healed, if they can't identify themselves beyond that, you are dealing with low vibrational forces. So once you just understand that it's not them, you're dealing with an entity because they have assumed the role. They haven't questioned beyond what they have seen and what is right. So I'm wishing you all the best. If you're looking to get assistance with cutting that cord from the entity and helping you recondition your mind to understand this aspect, then please do get in touch. My email will be in the description down below.